Hi, all, and welcome to Monday Night's Treasure Vortex with Gypsy Jewels from GypsyDix.com, as well as YouTube's Zero Discrimination, and myself, Amanda Digger Degaz. So, hi, all. I feel like it's been forever since we have been on, and both Gypsy and I apologize. 2 weeks ago, I was super, super sick, and last week, Gypsy was super, super sick, and we're both feeling relatively better. I know Gypsy's definitely not 100%. I'm working at like 85%. So, yeah, we figured we'd get on, and definitely we have an awesome special guest tonight, Keith Wills. And yeah, so hey, Gypsy, how are you feeling?
I was feeling a lot better, and so I got to get out and go metal detecting yesterday with one of my new friends, and was feeling kind of yucky again today. I think I got a little overheated, and I know you and I talked about, you know, how to stay hydrated and all this type of weather that we're getting, but I think I did it again and didn't drink enough water. I mean, I drank quite a bit of water, but I think it was just not enough.
Yep.
So I'm
I
kind of
I
feeling it today.
Yeah, and I absolutely did not take our advice the last time either. And I know that I got pretty dehydrated and then some other stuff, and didn't help. Didn't help at all. Definitely should have been listening to our own advice. It would have been the smart way to go about it. So you said you got out yesterday.
Yeah, I did. I went to the lake with my new friend that actually our guest had. She came into his shop, I think, or met him maybe at one of the local metal detecting clubs. I'll let him tell us in a bit. But and she contacted me, and we've been out twice now metal detecting together. And the last time was at the lake, and I was sick the next day, and I think I was sick for about 5 days. So that's why I missed that podcast. And the one before the week before that, you were sick. So goodness, I'm done being sick. How about you? I'm ready for all that to be over with. But yeah, I was able to get out, and my friend, I let her borrow my AT Max or one of my AT Maxes, and she loved it. She ended up finding a tungsten ring, so she was really excited about that. Now, how about you? I know you got to get out, didn't you?
I have.
This week or the week before?
I've gotten out. I have not gotten out metal detecting, actually. I've been watching the plows go, and they're hay in the fields right now, and hopefully within the next 2 days they'll be cleaned up, and then metal detecting will be a go again. But other than that, no, I've been out mudlarking quite a bit. I found some actually really cool stuff. The usual marbles, found an intact clay pipe bowl, and a whole bunch of morning buttons, some crazy things. Lots of clay marbles though, which is, I usually find one or two, but there's this one spot that, each time I visit this little nook, it's, 5 or 6 clay marbles and other interesting things. So yeah, it's been good. I know you and I have gone back and forth on the weather, and you've been, in the 90s and the hundreds, and we've been in the 50s, and it dropped down last night to 40. And I'm like, what is going on? And it rained on and off all day yesterday in the colds. And honestly, at one point I stepped outside and I'm like, is it gonna snow? Because it just wasn't.
Oh my goodness, are you serious? That
It
is
was cold.
insane.
It was cold. I
That's
wasn't quite.
insane.
I think it's my fault though. It seems every time I put away the hats and the thermals and, my thicker digging gloves and stuff like that, that all of a sudden it gets cold again. It's just kicking me for for packing it all away. But
Well, um, and I wish I could send you some of this Texas heat. It got to be 100 today. I think it's 97 out there right now, but yeah, up to 100 today. So who knows what the index is here? I just know yesterday out in that heat, if I wouldn't have been detecting in the water, I would probably wouldn't even have made it detecting as long as I did. So hydrate, hydrate, hydrate.
yes, yeah,
So any cool
absolutely.
finds?
Yeah, the intact clay pipe bowl and a bunch of, morning button and some other things that I haven't ever seen before. It's interesting. I need to do a cleanup. I've been working on cleaning up the house. So anything that I usually spend time cleaning is now sitting in, plates and bags and dishes, in my relic room office. So I definitely have to work on getting some of those cleaned up and get some pictures out. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's funny because I'm just now starting to clean some of the finds from our New Hampshire trip for Bone. I just released a video today. In fact, it hadn't been out too long. If y'all haven't seen it yet, it's part one of several of Best in New England Bone. When I flew up and visited with Amanda in Maine, and then we drove on over to New Hampshire for Bone. So uh, part one was released today, and so I should have two more parts coming out. So y'all be sure and check that out. And if you get a chance later, and I sure appreciate it. It was a lot of fun, wasn't it, Amanda?
Absolutely. Tons and tons of fun. Actually, it's cool. It's been about 2 months since it. Yeah, about 2 months. So I had forgotten a lot of the finds, and it's crazy. It was great watching it. You captured a lot of the great finds. What you showed so far, and I'm looking forward to part two.
Thanks. Yeah, I really do believe I've had a lot of people think that that silver ring that I found is a was a coin at one time that was definitely made into because of that crudeness inside. So that's the consensus with most people that watch it anyway that have been telling me. So
Yeah, coin silver.
um,
That's what we thought. It was handmade.
right, so that's really cool.
Yeah,
But
very
I
cool.
guess that really relates to the age of that tavern there and all the history in that area that was so fascinating. So I love it. All right, I think we should go ahead and bring in our special guest tonight. I know some of you know him, some of you may not. I know Wayne here in chat knows our special guest tonight. And without further ado, one of my favorite metal detectors that actually lives only about 15 miles from me now. I can drive up to his shop and be there in about 10, 15 minutes. So it's awesome being so close now. I'll have to come in there and bother you more, Keith, but I don't like to bother you when you're working. So,
All right.
uh, so welcome, Keith. Thanks for being here tonight.
Well, I'm just tickled to be here, to be honest with you. I've yet to be on one of your podcasts. Well, I guess I was on there when you had that all metal podcast a couple of times.
Yeah, I think you were on
Hmm.
there with when I was with Mike, and that's before Amanda and I started doing it. And
Right.
so we're so glad and honored to have you tonight. Those of you that don't know Keith, Keith, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, and if you don't mind, just tell us kind of how you got started in metal detecting and what you do now, so they can kind of understand a little bit.
Well, I've been detecting now over 50 years, more like 55 years or so. And I got into it when I was like 15. I traded a rod and reel for a one knob detector and just one of those ring type things. And when I got out to the parks and started hunting with it, I was having so much good time because back then, instead of finding pennies, you were finding silver halves like Walking Liberties and Franklin's and stuff like that. Well, my father couldn't take it anymore, and he got into metal detecting. Of course, he bought a better detector than what I had. And here we go, and I can't name a better father and son do than to metal detect together because it's just unbelievable, and you get to share the information you get off of it and stuff like that. But my father was a devout coin hunter, and I ventured off into relic hunting and prospecting and several other things between Canada and down to Argentina. And so I just I went and found caches. I dove on some shipwrecks. I've done a lot of stuff, but I started my business back in 1982, and it was mostly to repair detectors more so than sell, because I had the electronic background, and I just I saw a need for the people that have used detectors to be able to have them fixed. It'd be the favorite ones or one from Dad that was left afterwards and stuff like that. So I just started doing that, and I've accumulated more than thousands of dollars worth of stuff. I've accumulated probably millions of dollars worth of stuff, and so I'm about the only person that has it anymore and knows how to fix it and stuff. So I get quite a few calls, and since I can't find anybody to work for me anymore, just about Roger's the only one. He's listening in. I bet you he's the only one that will work for me, and he'll probably tell you because I'm so ornery. But it's really he's a MacGyver type fellow. If he sits down with something to work on in front of him, it's going to get fixed, and that's the way he does it. So he's more into air conditioning than electronics, but he really impresses me. But anyway, I've just had all kinds of things I've done over the years, and some are so laughable that you can't quit laughing. And I never go anywhere hunting, fishing, metal detecting without something funny happening. And so I get around a campfire, start discussing stuff like that. A lot of people just say, "Hush, hush, let me talk." After a while, you figure they get sick of it, but I usually keep them laughing. I'll tell you.
That's awesome. I know I've
Go ahead, girls. Go ahead. I stopped for a breath.
I was gonna say, I know I've sent quite a few detectorists your way to have their machines fixed. You've been
Yeah.
great contact, and I know the machines, which is awesome, especially a lot of the whites machines I know you've handled. So you're still one of the
Right.
go-tos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I work on just about everything but Mind Lab or Deus because they won't sell you the parts. But everything else I just about work on some European ones and stuff too. So we've had all kinds of things come in. One time a guy in Florida sent us 2 termite detectors. Now they're not real small like you would figure a termite would use, but it was actually to determine it was actually to pick up an IC chip on the top of a termite cage that they bury out around your yard to see if you have bad infesting of termites. And it was interesting. That was something I'd never done. And then I've worked on swimming pool detectors to find cracks, and they're self-diving detectors that dive underwater. Doesn't take any mechanical business, and it just finds a crack in your pool and marks it. And so we've done odd, even food processing detectors we've repaired. So.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Any of you, I know, Amanda, when you come visit in Texas, you know, you're going to have to go to Keith's shop and just see. When you walk in, and not only you get to see so many finds that he's found all over, you know, for years and years on display, but you also get to see all these many detectors. And like I said, like he was saying a while ago, with all the different types of detectors he's worked on over the years, you won't believe how many, like any kind of coil that you want, I bet you Keith has for any type of detector. Coils, old machines, newer machines. It's kind of mind-blowing, really, when you get to go to a shop. And then amongst all that, you even get to see the meteorite that he found, which is a pretty awesome story there, too, if none of you have ever heard the meteorite story.
Yeah, I found that when I was 15 years old, and I was using an old White's back then, and a pretty simple one, actually. And I was working for the Fort Worth Museum at the time as a slab cutter for the lapidary department. And they decided to make a field trip and collect rocks, so I went with them. And after it was over, my buddy and I was the last two there, and he said, "Get that detector out. I've been wanting to use it all afternoon." So I pulled it out, and he looked around, and there was a high line through this property. It's you know, over there on the other side of Fort Worth and further west, and he was picking up all that highline gear that they drop off, all that metal and stuff, and he gave it up pretty quick and gave it to me, and I poked around for a while, and there was something that looked like a pond dam, and at the base of the pond dam, I was getting a signal, so I just kept digging, about 2-3 foot, somewhere in there. I dug up this big heavy meteorite. It's like, it's larger than putting both your fists together, and at the time, I didn't know it was a meteorite. It was just a heavy rock. Well, the reason I got that job at the museum was my cousin was one of the curators of the museum, and they had the largest collection in the United States of meteorites at Fort Worth Museum at that time. And he come over to the house one day for some family get-together, whatever, and he walks into my bedroom, and he said, "Where'd you get the meteorite?" "I got rocks all over the room. I'm looking up the walls everywhere. I got rocks." He said, "No, the one that's holding your door open down here, that heavy one." He said, "I can look at it from here and tell you it's a meteorite." So he went into the details, since he's curator for the same thing, and told me why it was a meteorite and how I could tell. And I learned a lot from him, and hanging around up there being slab cutter, he'd take me and show me the different meteorites I had. And since I found that meteorite, I became kind of known for identifying if you have a meteorite or not. So people bring by a bunch of stuff, and they'll get frustrated if it's not a meteorite. And then I tell the ugliest looking rock to a person and say, "Yep, that's a meteorite. It's definitely one." You know. So.
And there's so many varieties of meteors, so I found out. Yeah. And I know I thought I found one thing that I found once was a meteorite, but I think it's just, I mean, one way is to tell if they are mostly magnetic, but there are other types of rocks that are magnetic. So what's the best way to tell that you learned, Keith?
Well, see, my meteorite is mostly nickel. There's 7 different elements in my meteorite, and 2 of them are unknown to man. And it would have to crush my entire meteorite to get a good enough specimen to try to identify the 2 unknown elements. So Fort Worth Museum did the first assay on it, thanks to my cousin. And at the time, it was maybe worth 1,500. He said it maybe at the very best. And then, I had another one. Meteorite Man used to be in all the old treasure magazines, and he had somebody that was interested one time, and so I sent it off to be appraised at Smithsonian. Never again will I do that.
Yeah,
They kept calling me and putting me off, and then all of a sudden they said, "Oh, we never received your meteorite." So my business attorney had to write them a threatening letter, and suddenly I get back my $79 for the analysis and an analysis sheet too, and the meteorite with the corner knocked off. They had to take a piece of it, which of course, as my attorney said, just it's not even worth the trouble. And so I said, okay, well, I was just hot under the collar for the foolishness they gave me. And the last one I had it appraised at was University of Arkansas. It's now, I guess, still now the, real people to identify in the United States. And this time I stayed with it. I just got a motel room and waited for the next day until they got it all figured out. And it came back pretty much the same way that, Fort Worth did. I don't think they knew to do a real good one. But I did get the one from, Washington, D.C., and then Smithsonian. And then this one I got from them was about the same percentages of what's in it, nickel being the most percentage. But the iron in it is so lightly spaced. I mean, you can look at it and you'd never get a magnet to even try to draw to it.
Huh.
And
Interesting.
so it too much nickel, so iron magnet won't do you any good. And they showed me the way the gas escaped as it's going through the atmosphere. There's porous holes in it, and if you look behind that in the sunlight, each hole will have a tail behind it in colors through the sunlight, so showing you which way the gas was escaping and exhausting from the rock as it fell. And then one of the things my cousin pointed out, it's got a flat side on it. That meant when it was coming through the atmosphere, it was molten hot and escaping that gas as you boil. Any metal that you boil is going to escape gas. And then when it impacted, and then it had a semi-flat side that was a rollover side. And so the University of Arkansas dubbed it $138,000 meteorite. And so it's still here and it's still for sale. But anyway, I just, it looks like another rock, but when you go pick it up, there's something different because it weighs many times its own look like weight of it. So I even forgot the particulars. I was trying to remember what it weighed, but anyway, it seems like it was around 15 pounds or something like that. But anyway, it was interesting, and I've been interested in them, studied them quite a bit since then when I found it when I was just, younger and stuff.
I bet. That's so fascinating. I'm sure there's other finds that have really stuck out to you as well. I know you've got several questions for him, Amanda. You go ahead.
Well, meteorites are pretty. That's amazing. That's amazing. And so you found that in Texas, that one that you were just talking about?
Yes. There's they say there's over 3,000 meteorites hit the Earth a day.
That really? I did not know.
Wow.
Take that in and try to digest it. How many more people have not been killed by a meteorite? You just being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
That's insane.
The last I ever heard was one came through a lady's living room, knocked the corner of her house off, and went through her television set in her living room. and that was about the size of a golf ball.
Oh my goodness! I watched a beautiful meteor shower not too long ago. That's one thing living out here in the country in East Texas. Oh my goodness, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say that. Yeah, I wish. I mean, meteorites. Some of them can be worth quite a bit of money. And I remember when I was a kid, my father took me. I think there was a large crater, meteor crater in West Texas, up near Odessa, I think it was. I remember him taking me there as a kid. And then after I grew up and, discovered metal detectors, I was like, boy, I'd love to go back, but I'm sure it's been pounded for small fragments of that meteor that left that giant crater, but fascinating stuff for sure.
There's one here in southeast Texas. I think it's below Crockett, if I'm not mistaken, but it's a deep crater too, and they actually have Friday night and Saturday night dances out there in the crater, and playing music, live music, and people go there for just the evening out and enjoy themselves and stuff. And I was so amazed when I heard that, and I looked it up. I can't remember the name of the crater now, but anyway, I looked it up, and sure enough, they showed pictures of people sitting out around tables and chairs and listening to music and stuff.
That's pretty crazy. I think I want to do that just so I could say, "What'd you do this weekend?" Well, I got down in that crater over there.
Yeah.
Giant meteor crater. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to start researching, and I think Lane just said there was a huge one in Arizona as well. So really cool.
Yeah.
I'll find one in your area, Amanda, up there. So
if you live there long enough, Amanda, you may have one come through your living room.
Yeah, actually, the area I've been detecting right now, the property owner that lived there, prior to the new owner, I had gone over and he had some huge meteorites and had them all, authenticated and whatnot through the university system here. And he was so, yeah, I loved hearing the stories about him going out and searching. Him and his wife would go out and look, and they had a metal detector. And I should have asked him where. I never put the two in. Yeah, I should have.
Oh man.
Well, I have some friends in Arizona, and instead of going nugget hunting, several of them have changed over to meteorite hunting. It's actually, they say, dollar for dollar, it's worth as much or more. Because now the meteorite craze is on, and they make jewelry from it and stuff of that nature. So,
that's pretty neat. I love it.
Yep.
So, Keith, tell us, that meteorite is kind of a once in a lifetime find. I mean, especially that one of that size. You have another favorite find that you found, or maybe?
Well, I can tell you this. You dig your first gold coin, and I don't care if you dig 9 like I have. At 9th, you have the same reaction as you did that first one. You hoop and holler and everything else, because I just made it a point after I dug a gold coin the first time to go to places where you would find a gold coin. And what place would that be but something in older days when, like, the plantation owner had the ability to actually own one and show it off or whatever in his pocket change. And so I started hunting plantations, mostly in Louisiana. And sure enough, you find a gold coin every now and then. But it wasn't a big deal. But, I mean, I'm on number 9, and I'd like to make number 10 before I kick the bucket someday. But I was with a gentleman that was a friend of mine in Laneville, Texas, outside of Henderson. And that was the last one I did. It was 1885 $5 gold piece. 2 things happened there. One is we were at a stagecoach stop, and it was so neat to look at what the guy was using for a barn was the actual stop back then, and most of the people signed their name in the logs outside, and you'd be 100 X's because the people didn't know how to spell. So they just mark an X as their name. But in that stagecoach stop and further back away from all the old lead zinc cans that they threw all over the place, I found a 1885 $5 gold piece. Now, there's a trick for you that most detectorists don't know to do. Even in a Civil War spot, there's trees growing that's big as your thigh or something like that, but wasn't there during the Civil War. And there was activity in the dirt that's under that tree. So when you swing your coil perpendicular to the tree, which way is the signal coming off that coil? Away from the tree. So you're not detecting the dirt, and 10 inches deep, you're not seeing probably 5 gallons of dirt underneath that tree at all. You have to rock that coil in a 45 direction as you come to that tree, and you'll hear the target under the tree. And I've dug through a lot of roots over my years and stuff, and dug a lot of bullets out that people go, oh, you can't hunt out there. We picked it dry 10 years ago. There's not a single piece of lead left out there. I come back with double fistful every time because rocking into the tree. And most of the time when I relic in thickness like that, I push. I don't swing. I push my coil up under brush, stuff like that, and then rock into my trees, and I'll dig lots more relics that they left. And then on the gold coin this time, I was digging, there was all kinds of lead zinc cans, piles of them, where they didn't bury them or nothing back in those days. They just laid them on top of the ground till they got stomped flat, and finally moved to a different part of the property. I have a thing I do that if I'm not producing or not seeing anything very well, I stop, stoop down, and look at the lay of the property. And that usually tells me where I want to go next. And it usually proves to be a pretty good idea. So I did that at this particular stage stop. And I went where I thought, again, I was looking at kind of a berm there of what I thought was a pond dam. And it turned out to be 3 great big huge tree root bundles that fell over in the same direction. And of course, I'm going to hunt those root bundles because they're bad about carrying coins and relics with them when they fall. So you hunt that and you hunt below them. But I didn't find anything until I stepped away from them. And now I'm starting to find these little girl shiny buckles off their shoes, the buckle-in shoes and stuff back then. And, metal buttons and just little tiny smalls, but it was enough to keep your interest going. And I made that one pass past all those root bundles and got to a tree that's as big around as my calf. And I rocked into it, and it sounded off every time I rocked into the tree. And so I dug down there and hit a big root right off the bat, big as your wrist. And I said, well, now I'm going to dig on both sides of that to get down under it. And I did that down to about 8 inches, and I hit another root directly under the first one. I said, well, I'm going to expand my hole at the top to 2 foot in diameter to be able to dig down to get a hole going around that root. So I said, if it's another shoe buckle, I would not be happy. So I'll just rake the rest of the dirt out of the hole off top of this root, throw it out here, and see if I found it or if it's still in the hole. Well, any of us that have metal detectors any length of time know that if you hit a nice coin or a good piece of metal down there that's worth collecting, that you can knock it out of its halo. People that understand halo knows that the soil acids eat at the metal and leach into the soil. Just like when you see a rusty nail, you see all the rust around it. Well, when that leaches like that, it becomes just the same thing as an electric guitar plugging into an amplifier. it enhances the sound to the metal detector and the size of the object. But as soon as you are digging and you hit that coin and knock it out of the connection with that halo around it, suddenly it disappears. It falls to the bottom of the hole. You thought you lost the coin. It was such a good target when you heard it, and now you don't hear it. So I did the same thing I preach a lot of times at my seminars. I just raked every piece of loose dirt out of there, and it still wasn't any sound in the hole. And when I went over the pile of dirt the second time, bang, 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 there it was. So I'm standing up. It's only 103 degrees outside that day. No wind whatsoever. I'm using a new detector built by Tesoro just to make it quieter than my compass was back then. And I took my foot and just kicked the dirt. When I did, that 1885 $5 gold piece flipped up like it was brand new. It had sharp edges on it too. Well,
wow.
Now with this little bitty sidewinder that they sent me to field test for them, Tesoro did, it came with a little coil cord small headphones that just barely cover your ear. And I didn't look down, but that cord was wrapped around my digging tool in my pouch. And so when I went to my knees to grab the $5 gold piece, and one of my friends was out there, and he's 80 years old, and he thought I was snake bit. And so he's running across that field to get to me, 80 years old, man sprinting like he's been doing it all his life. And then when he gets to me, the headphones that was hung up on my digger came back and hit me in the face. So I'm sitting there rocking back and forth, but I did get hold of that $5 gold piece. And he comes up there, are you snake bit? Are you snake bit? I said, no, I'm this. And I held out my hand. He saw that $5 gold piece. And the only thing he could say to me is, I wish you were snake bit.
He was a little envious.
Of course, his son happened to be a partner of mine that prospected all the time, and he was working on my truck while me and his dad was out metal detecting, and they've been hunting that place for 3 years and only found one Indian head penny on it. And so I felt pretty good about that, but I didn't know whether they'd ever speak to me again.
Well, hopefully they did, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
They did. They just won't take me to any more places.
Well, did they expect you to return the favor and bring you to a couple of yours, so they could find a gold coin, or?
Well, Randy, his son, the Clarks live in one place there in Lanesville, all of uncles, aunts, all of them. And that was his dad that lived behind Randy where he lived at. And Randy was working on my truck, putting a part on for me while we were out goofing around. But by the time we even got in the truck to start goofing around, it's 100 degrees. And so I didn't want to keep his dad out too long. But every time I'd ask him, he'd say, oh, I'm good, let's go. Well, I just, I don't know, Randy's more my prospecting buddy. We used to go dredging a lot in rivers and climb peaks and dig for gold and dry wash for gold. And, we just do all kinds of stuff for gold. I spent 17 years doing that for a while. But anyway, Randy goes, well, that's just not right, man. I'm working on your truck. I said, are you going to finish it? That's what I want to know. Well, I sell the gold coin to get somebody to put my truck back together.
Oh, boy. I know you have so many stories over the years. Is there one of the strangest finds you've ever found, or spookiest or craziest? You have one of those?
Well, there's one that's on top, but I can't tell you about that one. You got mixed folks here.
Okay.
There's other ones. I mean, I've found some that people that asked me to come search burnt down house and stuff like that. We're finding their jewelry box that was on the headboard and stuff. I remember doing that for a lady, and she rode horses, rode barrels in rodeos, and she was a skinny, bony thing. But anyway, she wanted to see if I could find her box. And once you find the bed springs, you know where the bed was, and so it goes right through the floor when it gets burnt. So I did find her box. I had to move a pair of bed springs to do it, and but she had a big handful of zinc pennies inside that little jewelry box. Every gold necklace, all her wedding set, everything embedded in zinc. It melted those zinc pennies. Yeah. And so I got a few of pieces out for her, and I gave her back the box. I said, take it to a jeweler and let him melt that zinc off of it for you. But I found some strange stuff a lot too. I mean, I dug up a whole motorcycle one time. I was behind the old house, and somebody buried a motorcycle back there. It's a little 50 type motorcycle, and I dug the whole thing up out of there. And it was tempting not to take it home and see if I could get it to run, but I just didn't need the problem. I had enough problems as was. And so there's just, I'd have to think for a while, because I try not to remember the ones that got me and more of the ones that I got. So, but
right. Well, I know Amanda's
I did slap a couple of sharks on the nose. You know, when I was diving off Panama, the shipwrecks, the sand sharks, they're curious like a cat, and you be fanning the bottom where you got a signal on your detector, and you look up, and right there on your left shoulder, there's a nose of a sand shark that's 10 foot long. It kind of puts a stop to your heart for a minute. You need to restart, you know. And I just raise my knuckles up and pop them in the nose, and they take off like a cat. And they won't bother you no more, but they'll scoot around out there where you can see them, but they won't do anything else. I wouldn't recommend that on the hammerheads, because when they get there, they're already peeved off. So you put a fist out to them, and you won't have one come back. So it's just the education I got. I taught my parents and let me off for 3 months during the summer, and I rode with a Captain James. I forgot his last name, was Jocko or something like that on his boat, and I was a relief diver. And you know, you only dive in 15 to 18 foot, because the coral's got to rip the bottom out of the ship before it sinks, and all the heavy stuff in the ship is in the bottom to keep it upright, because they're V bottoms. Keep it upright, extra cannonballs, ballast rock, and all that stuff's in there. And if they got a treasure, it'd be in the bottom too. But once they run up a coral reef, they rip the bottom out. It may be 2 miles before the whole thing sinks.
Wow.
So I had the pleasure of sitting on a 1723 Portuguese cannon one time with me and a real diver. I was working as relief, and so we were sitting there looking at each other's finds, and both of us found money chains. And money chains really got started in the 1600s, and they're a length about as wide as your thumb, square. And each link is not welded together, it's just soft gold. And so when the rich would wear that around their neck to show off to everybody that they're of some high royalty or something, you know. And if they purchased something, they just hand the merchant a link, and he would break off what he gave them back, and they'd rejoin the link. But I could see why a bunch of those little boys bent over, because some of those money chains are awful heavy. I don't know. Underwater, I couldn't weigh them, but they were heavy. And once you put it in the basket, only the captain of the boat and the archaeologist, if you had to take one with you, get to touch it. So none of us get to handle it after that. So if we're going to handle it, we have to do it underwater.
Wow.
Look at it, mess with it.
That's fascinating. Wow.
That really is. I'd never heard of that. So that's really fascinating in itself, like chain money. That's crazy. Makes
Yeah,
sense though.
there's you can't bring iron out of salt water like that. It's been impacted with it, and you have to do a mix of fresh water and what you call brackish water, salt water and uh, fresh water, and put it in a tub big enough or aquarium big enough to soak like a pistol and stuff like that. Because if you don't, the outside air will react to that salt and it'll just stop popping like popcorn. You hear this popping noise, look around, and pieces of the barrel are just shooting off. There's
Huh.
slivers of it. And so you lose the whole thing. You don't have anything to show for what it was, and you have to usually carry a tank on a boat like that with brackish water in it to put rifles and stuff like that in to do it. I lost 104, I think it was. We were hunting a port side across from on Mustang Island, and we found where the old fort site was, and we dug up a barrel with over 100 guns stuck in that barrel. By the time we got to town, found something that worked for a tub and get enough fresh water to mix with the salt water. They were just a big pile of, looked like ashes of iron. All you got was a
Oh,
trigger, maybe a butt plate off of them, and that's it.
oh,
You lost the whole thing. Yeah, I would rather left them in the ground because of that, but it taught me a lesson.
right. Sometimes we have to learn the hard way. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a hard way to learn it. It is. So, when you've been out metal detecting and meteorite hunting and diving, do you also, search for Native American artifacts like arrowheads and things like that?
I never took a big liking to doing that. I'd find arrowheads and I'd just give them away to grandkids or something. I only have 11 grandkids. But anyway, I give them away, or I give them away still today sometimes. I only have one frame up in the living room that I found an archaic spearhead, and that was helping a fellow dig a fence post hole, a fence post digger. And I didn't know what the rock was, and after I got it a little uncovered, I got to looking at it. I said, it's in the shape of an arrowhead, but it's real thick. It's probably an inch and a half thick, and it went on the spear. It's what they spear bigger animals with. And believe it or not, I found it right here in Gilmer. So it means that some cavemen live around here, and I think there still is a few around here. But anyway, that was amazing. I found that helping the guy do a fence post stuff. And, but I just never had a big caring for it. I was always using that detector, trying to find the next piece of metal that was going to be different or whatever. And I found sword guards that came off swords and stuff. I stopped a guy one time helping run a hunt and told him, I said, don't throw that away. And he said, why? It's just a bunch of mangled brass. I said, if you look real close, you'll see the oval shape of a blade that went through the handle and the butt. That's period. That's Civil War. Oh, gosh, I didn't know that. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm sure,
So,
man, I bet you've seen all kinds of relics come in out of the ground, besides some of the relics that you've dug, but other people, because you've been an influence to so many people all over, and, you've sold so many metal detectors over the years, so most of you might not have known. But I bought my first Garrett metal detector. It was a used metal detector from Keith many moons ago, and it's been about 23 years ago, in fact, and hard to believe. But I used to stop in and look at his shop and look at all those finds and listen to his stories and he was always telling me, one of his treasure stories, something he dug or something that somebody else dug. But do you have like a favorite find maybe that you dug, or maybe you were out metal detecting with someone that someone else dug? Do you have like one that really sticks out in your mind besides your gold coins and your?
Yeah, I have several really, but one time a guy got in my face and he said, "Well, you think you know everything, don't you?" I said, "No. If you're talking about what identifying relics, we all kind of work together. It's not separately. I mean, when they find out what it is, they let us know what it is. They do research on it. We do research for him too, and try to identify it for him. And so each of us share in knowledge and share in the hunt. And but anyway, I really got off on relic hunting. I consider the best relic hunter I ever met in my life, and I'll say his name, Dorian Cook. He taught me so much about relic hunting that I came astounded to put it. The words wouldn't fit in a thick book, but he really knew the Civil War. He knew his battles. He knew all that. And when I went hunting with him, it was just like being a novelist from the word go. And what I learned the most was the story, that what your finds are kind of tells you a story. Like one of the biggest things that would happen during the Civil War is if on their hip they had their bullet pouch. And it was a clasp that it hooked on, but running through these thick woods, you'd hang something up and break that clasp off. So every time that leg, the same size as that pouch, hit the ground, another brand new bullet would pop out of his bullet pouch on the ground. And then when you start hunting it, you're actually following in his footsteps, each one between each one. And sometimes you walk clean out of the woods just following his run of where he was running. I always was amazed at that, dating back clear to the Civil War. And then I found a place once and there was a tall hill, and on the other side, there was obviously, I found out enough stuff to tell me that there was Yankees on the other side of the hill. And the hill worked as a block so nobody could see the fire. Well, there was a stream coming out of the side of that hill, just a natural spring, and it was ice cold water. And I was watching it and even drank a little of it. And when I got over there to a little pad there, it was kind of flat on the opposite side from the hill, there turned out to be a whole bunch of dropped Confederate bullets in that spot. I was just digging one after another. I must have dug 30 of them right there. Then I'd step off of it, not move a foot, and there'd be fired Yankee sharps. And they were all fired bullets. So it told me that somebody was sitting on top of that hill or whatever. So I climbed that hill, and there's two gun placements up there. So there's two guys sitting there watching for anybody to walk up on their camp guys over the hill. And so it just got I even found a shield nickel and a wedding band in one of those gun placements there. And they just lean over a little dug-in spot in the dirt, and in case they get shot, they'll bury their important stuff and pick it up before they leave there. Somebody else will be in it after a while, and so on. And so, so I'm looking at standing where all those Confederate drops were that had been fired. I'm looking at a Confederate that probably walked up by himself, nobody around, or he thought nobody was around, and he wanted to drink of that cool water. And all of a sudden, those Yankees up there saw him and started shooting the lead at him. He's probably fumbling through that pouch, trying to get another bullet down the barrel and shoot again. So, and more than likely, I'm standing where he died because he's got two people shooting at him from an elevated site. And so it makes me want to sit down for a while, look at it and all a little bit. Because I'm learning a piece of history that's not in the books. what's going on, and I'm standing where they were standing, and so, I love that about relic hunting.
Absolutely.
Wow.
The stories are
Yeah.
amazing.
It just bringing that story to
Yeah.
life, and we do that so often with the relics we dig and everything.
Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time, so we're definitely going to have you back
Okay.
because you just have so many fascinating stories. But one of our favorite questions to ask, and I know Dej in our chat asked a while ago, is there a white whale, something you consider, something that you've always wanted to find but you've never found? Anything like that? One last thing. Besides that,
Do I still have one, you mean? Do I still have something I want to dig I've never done?
Yeah.
About 100 of my buddies every year dig those. Not me, but them. I don't get out as much as I used to because I physically don't add up to it. I should be in shape, but I'm not. And so I try, that picture that you liked that you sent me before this podcast, that was me pushing a walker and 49 other people hunting what was considered to be a Confederate camp, but it wasn't. But we didn't know that until we hunted. And the only way I could get around is put a outdoor walker that I modified and could hang my detector on and clamp it to it and clamp my digging tool and a backpack on the back for all my drinks and stuff. And I'd move it about 60 yards and hunt out there around 60 yards and then sit down, relax a minute, and move it again. And I told I told one of my buddies, that's the editor of a treasure magazine, I told him, I said, look, when you put this on the cover of me pushing that walker around with everybody else walking around, put at the top of it, relic hunters die hard. He laughed. He said, you send it to me, I'll put it in there. I said, okay. It was so funny. But, for years I was teaching everybody else, and now I was where I couldn't hardly walk, and that they ended up finding out anyway. I kept identifying everybody's relics, and finally the president of the club that put that on just said, just ask him. He knows every one of them. And I would identify them what they were. So
what is that item you're holding up in that photo that you found that day?
That was one I found that day. There was 50 people allowed in that hunt, and they kept number 50 open for me, hoping I would come. Until I figured out what I was doing with the walker, I wasn't going to. But that is a bayonet scalpel tip. And I've yet to ever dig one, and I've dug plenty of them. That one was standing straight up in the hole, about 6 inches deep and straight up. So you're not looking at the rest of the scalpel tip, just a little finial on the end. And most people would pass it up. But I hunt slower sometimes and get it hit both ways, and it makes me want to dig it up. So I dug that up, and I know when they had a couple of pop-ups there. This is the Little Rock, Arkansas, north of Little Rock club up there. It's R&R Club, or Relic Recovery. They moved one of those pop-ups that was serving food for everybody for 2 days. And when they did, well, I kept watching everybody. There was 60 people around me, and I kept watching. Was nobody going to go up there and hunt that piece of ground that they moved off of? So I went up there and started hunting, dug a piece or two of junk, and then the last one was a beautiful gold gill cuff button, and it was Confederate.
That's awesome.
Wow.
And the president's wife started hollering at everybody, look at y'all. Y'all are all sitting around, and he walks up here and digs a gold cuff button. So I made an impression, but that's about it.
Well, I love it. Well, we thank you so much, Keith, for being here tonight. And we're going to definitely have to have you back again. I just love hearing your stories and all the things that you've experienced and over the years, and looking forward to next time. And thank you all for being here tonight. We appreciate everyone listening in. And be sure, and you can go back after Amanda shares this on social media. You can share the link. And also just remember, if you missed it, if someone missed it, you can always have them pop in and listen again. We appreciate all of you. And you all have a wonderful night and a rest of your week. I hope it's wonderful and you did lots of amazing things if you get out. Good night, all.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Keith.
You bet. Glad to do it anytime y'all need somebody to fill in.
Yeah,
I'm a filler.
anytime. And I know I need to get down to Texas, and I will be paying you a visit.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right.
That's one of the first places we're going to come is I'm going to bring her to visit you, Keith. So.
Okay. That'll be fine.
Perfect. All right.
Anytime.
Again, Keith.
Good night, everyone.
Don't take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Yeah.